Okay, good afternoon to those of you who are joining us. I can see the numbers coming through very nicely, jumping up on the numbers. We're expecting a really good number of attendees today, so I'm going to give it, let's say, a minute or two for those numbers to throw through before we formally start. Hopefully you can, those of you that have joined already can see our front slide on the subject matter of today that we'll be covering. We'll just, as I say, give it a minute or so from now before we kick off into the presentation. Okay, Brian, I think we get going. I think we've probably given sufficient time. We've got good numbers through. I dare say we might see some more trickle through as we go, but let's kick off, I think. So, as I say, afternoon to everybody who's joined us. Thank you very much for joining myself and Brian, who will have intros formally shortly. But the subject matter in question today, or the content through which we'll be talking, is around the concept of fast data, what it means, how it can be used, how it can be harnessed alongside technology in order to drive powerful, output of data that can lead to actions and decision making. So that's the content, that's the subject matter of the day. I'm just going to move on to a bit of an agenda. We're going to do our best to keep to good time on this. So the plan for today, we've got 45 minutes. We're allowing for some time at the end for questions. I've got a feeling that there should be a good amount of them, certainly following the demos that we've got. So we're allowing a good 10-15 minutes for questions at the end. Before that, we're going to run through the concept of 24/7 flow of fast data, what that means, how it can be achieved, how it can be managed. What that means for clients, what should clients be able to benefit and take advantage of the fact that they have the availability of this fast data, what it means for accountants, how accountants can harness it, what it can achieve in terms of its output. There's a lot of data, it's much more accessible now, but how can we make the most of it? Then we'll move on to sort of looking ahead. Where are we going? Where are we envisaging that we'll be in terms of the evolution of data, the flow of data and the use of data in this space? We then got a bit about the concept or the idea of always on, the pros and the cons of that, and a bit of a discussion around what that means. Before we get into the couple of live demos that we've got, as I say, my colleague Brian, from whom we'll have an intro in a second, on the AutoEntry, myself, Dan, on the Futrli, before we've then got the opportunity for the questions and answers. So on to intros, and just before I hand over to Brian, I'll reference the fact that Helen Cockle, who's our COO here at Futrli by Sage, was meant to be on the webinar, unfortunately can't join. She'll be sorely missed, but I'll do my best to cover the bits that Helen would have been going over, and certainly we'll cover the bits around the intro of the Futrli platform. So Brian, over to you then, I guess, for a bit of an intro.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. I'll do the easy question first. My name is Brian Carolan, as it says there. One of the product owners here in AutoEntry. I've been with AutoEntry for, I think it's coming up to 9 years now. I actually joined the company about a year before AutoEntry formally launched. It had a different name back in the day, but before it went live at all, I joined the company. So I've been here right since the inception and growth, building and development of AutoEntry, all the way through, including, of course, a couple of years ago when we were acquired by Sage, and joined the Sage umbrella, with Futrli joining us there a while ago as well. So I'm kind of one of the guys who knows AutoEntry inside out, just simply because I've been here that long. But yeah, it's great to be here and great to join you guys with the webinar.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brian. I mean, huge advantage to us having you here, 9 years with AutoEntry. So the things you've seen, Brian, over 9 years, and already the evolution of data, presumably, is significant.
And even when we were meeting colleagues in Sage, doing roundtables, introducing themselves, and people were generally like, "Oh, I've been with Sage 20 years, or I've been doing this job 10 years." While I'm with AutoEntry 9 years, AutoEntry is only 9 years old, so it's not too bad.
No, it's good. I can't wait to get into some of this detail, Brian, and we'll I'll give an intro for myself. I'm sure there'll be plenty, if not all, of the audience who don't know who I am. So my name's Dan Daly. My official role is as head of advice at Futrli by Sage. So Futrli being really an all-encompassing advisory platform with core capabilities around the task or exercise of forecasting in a three-way capacity. So across profit and loss, balance sheet, and cash flow, with the added functionality of direct integration with ledger information in the source data. So hugely powerful tool, and I think what we'll certainly be going through is how that tool can be used to surface some of this fast data that we're talking about. My background is in accounting practice, so 16 odd plus years in accounting practice. I know I don't look old enough. I started young, but that's where my background is. So coming from a position of understanding, at least to some extent, the operational requirements, practicalities, and challenges that are faced by our accounting audience. So that's our intro. So let's, I think, get into the crux of it, and let's get straight into this concept of a 24/7 flow of fast data. So just to tee this up a bit, I guess I wanted to give a bit of a share of my experience of what this has meant for me over time, and absolutely the sort of the dawn of the introduction and evolution of cloud accounting. Let's reference it as cloud accounting. Probably for me in practice, I'd say that it was the introduction of Xero into the accounting industry that probably served as a bit of a catalyst for that opportunity to work in a cloud environment. They certainly, I think it could be argued they weren't the first, but for me, that was the feeling that I had in the practice that I was in. What that meant was there was a huge opportunity, but it was equally a huge exercise of change management where you're both needing to manage the expectations of the people within the accounting industry, the teams within practice, how they work with data, but also how the clients then interact with that. And a bit of, I guess, behavioral and educational change for your clients to ensure that you can get the most of it. But ultimately, what it meant was there was much more ease of access to this data. You had the opportunity for it to all be in one place, and the ability then to surface really important and valuable metrics off the back of that data was there. I'll reference the idea of the opportunity here because the fact is the opportunity needs to be taken in an optimum and efficient fashion. Data in its raw form without management certainly doesn't necessarily serve anybody a valuable purpose. What we've got then is open banking. So certainly needs to be referenced. It was often really the core driver, I'd say, for the automation that could be brought into the collection and processing data within accounting software. So again, just drawing on some of my experience, in the early days, I think I'll reference Xero because that's where we started. In the early days, it was, I think, HSBC were the first sort of bank feed that was available. And that was a pretty wow moment, just in terms of breaking down and breaking apart and improving the process of bank processing and reconciliation for accountants. That in itself was a task that was in the exercise of accounts preparation, it was something that was probably done relatively early in the process, and it was considered, depending upon the quality of the source data, probably quite a cumbersome exercise. but probably a lot of validation that takes place, probably a lot of duplication of entry. And open banking sort of, that opened the door and the gateway to a position whereby you could really improve that piece. Brian, I can see you nodding. Anything you want to add to that piece? It's a pretty fundamental part of this process, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've spoken about this obviously a lot over the last while, that this whole concept of fast data, or even as we've termed it, real-time accounting, and the bank feeds has made such a big difference. And it's such a simple step. As you said, most of the banks, an awful lot of the banks have a bank feed direct available. And of course, like yourselves, with AutoEntry, we're a global product, and we see that shift. Australia, New Zealand were years ahead of the UK and Ireland here, who are also years ahead of in the USA. So the USA is still fantastically paper-based. I don't think they barely know what a laser printer is, let alone a dot matrix printer, some of the bank statements that we see. And as I'll show in our demo later on, AutoEntry was founded on the bank statement extraction idea, that we can get your paper statements into your accounts package without having to do anything with them. And when open banking came along and the bank feeds came along, okay, it's taken over a certain amount of our business, but don't forget, even you probably have, for everyone attending, you probably have clients who are still maybe not yet big enough to have a Sage or Xero or QuickBooks bookkeeping software in use. So you're still relying on paper statements. You're probably just typing them into Excel and then working through the accounts from there. So trying to get even the first step, where if you have a piece of accounting software, absolutely getting a bank feed turned on is just, it's a game changer. It's the very simplest first step of getting that flow of data straight into your accounts.
Yeah, I'll echo that piece, because I'm still working with, both a lot with our accounting partners, but equally direct with our business users of the platform. And it is, I'd probably say it is a bit surprising, the number of those end clients that still are working without automated bank feeds. And, there are steps between, I guess, completely manual entry and completely automated direct bank feeds, which, could equally be considered. It's all about trying to evolve the way in which you're working in order to create more efficiencies and give yourselves the access to the opportunity that is fast data.
And don't forget, hopefully no one on the call is still using actual physical paper books for their bookkeeping, but it's the very same simple step. Having that bank feed is just amazing.
So Brian, do you mean to say that you think there aren't people out there who have still got the red cash books?
Well, I hope not.
No, there's part of me that's got a lot of nostalgia towards the red cash book.
If anyone has, put your hand up and I'll just kick you from the call.
Yeah, it's a good point. Okay, so what we then want to move into, and I think I'd like to reference it because it certainly felt like a big factor in the journey that myself and the practice that I was in went on as part of this introduction and evolution of online accounting, and that is the influence of MTD in the way in which we carried out this migration of clients from, whether it be cashbook or desktop to cloud accounting. And in truth, a hell of a lot was learned from carrying out those exercises for the purpose of solely satisfying regulatory requirements under MTD. The truth is, the win here and the opportunity here is so much greater. And it's so much greater because of the benefits that can be had by the end user, the clients. So, of course, satisfying those regulatory requirements under MTD are a part of this. And eventually, they will encompass a large portion of our client portfolios as accountants. But we shouldn't just isolate our thinking on ensuring that we do comply. We should ensure that the clients have what I'll reference as an ecosystem of solutions that can allow them to effectively collect, manage, process, and then act upon fast data, which is some of what we'll move through now. Brian, before we move on, any last thoughts on that piece?
No, but it is, if you're not doing it, it is the future. And as we'll see as we go through the presentation, it's actually quite simple. It's not a daunting thing at all.
Yeah, it really is that, isn't it, Brian? It's the simple steps that can be taken to achieve some of those big wins. And so, we mentioned on that last slide, we talked about the bank feed being, that is relatively straightforward. It's relatively simple, huge opportunity for wins that can come off the back of that. So let's, I think, then start just talking about and covering some of what fast data means for clients. I wonder, just before, if we lead into it, Brian, we've talked about fast data, and we've probably talked around the idea of what fast data is. Have we coined a phrase? Have we coined a definition for what fast data is?
Oh, no, this wasn't in the notes before the meeting.
Yeah, I've ambushed you.
Well, no, but effectively it's, so whether if anyone on the call isn't fully aware, I probably didn't do an introduction on what AutoEntry is or why I'm on the call. Of course, not just as part of the Sage umbrella, but of course, the whole point of AutoEntry is to get that piece of paper from your client, whether it's a receipt or an invoice or a bank statement, to get it into your accounts package, whichever accounts package that may be, as quick and as easy as possible. And we can do it from the snap of an image on the phone app. So your client takes a photograph, they click upload, you have it in AutoEntry, 30 minutes, an hour later, click of a button, and it's in Sage or whichever accounts package you're using. So the idea of this fast data is from the point where your client has a receipt, maybe for putting diesel in the van, to the point where it gets into the accounts package. Now, traditionally, you have that as a monthly or maybe a quarterly exercise. Your client comes in, shopping bag full of receipts, and you have to start entering all those into the accounts package or entering them into Excel and then uploading them into the accounts. That's an extremely long period of time. What we talk about with fast data is the ability to get that piece of paper, that receipt from the petrol station forecourt, into the accounts package as quick as possible. And it can be something as simple as 30 minutes later. So the client snaps an image on the AutoEntry phone app. We process it, we do the extraction, and you can set it up that it automatically goes straight to the accounts package. At which point you're in the office and you're working on that client, you click refresh, and all of a sudden there's a receipt for the diesel. That's fast data. Now, as we'll cover, not only is this super for clients, if your client has access to your accounts package, they can obviously log in and see their cash flow straight away. You can obviously see it from your end. It means that we are kind of trying to get rid of that retrospective idea of accounting, whereby your client brings all your data, all their piece of paper in at the end of the month. You guys and all your colleagues in your office work flat out at the end of the month to get everything into the accounts package, to close the books, to close the month off, figure out what the VAT is and all the returns and everything else, or you do it on a quarterly basis, or you do it on a yearly basis. So you have those huge, big spikes of work when you have all of this data and you need to get it into accounts package, and then you can take a breath and go again at the end of the month again. Whereby if you have the client doing the snapping or scanning or any of the ways that we can accept the data off the client, it flatlines that data entry. And now it means 2 weeks into the month, you can have a look in Sage and you can see exactly how the client is doing, because you're getting a feed from the bank, you're getting a feed from the client, and lo and behold, all the calculations are done automatically in the accounts package, and you know exactly where the client is. And you can now even set alerts, maybe that you pop into one client and you see their cash flow is dipping off, that you can let them know, just take it easy. What are you planning for the rest of the month? What are your expenditures still to go out? You have to pay wages at the end. You have to do this, that money's coming in. So you now head towards a bit more of an advisory role rather than just catching up first week of the next month going, oh, you did well last month, or oh, you ran out of money 2 weeks in. And the idea is get the data fast, get it into accounts fast with as few touch points as possible, and you can see exactly how that client is doing right now effectively.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, as far as a 2-minute summation goes of what we're talking about, that's pretty bang on. So good work, despite the ambush nature of my question.
Was that only 2 minutes? Sorry.
I'll say 2 minutes. It was, but it's perfect. I think that is it. In a let's say a loose 2-minute nutshell, that's what this is all about. And I think for me, it's fast data facilitates fast decision making. And if I actually think back to when I'm in practice, or when I was in practice, to know where we are now, and in truth, some of this stuff was available back then, but it almost feels like I was inadequate in the way I was working, because some of this stuff you think about, we were doing bookkeeping, say, sometimes a monthly, sometimes a quarterly basis. Invoices might not have found their way into systems for a month or up to a month. Banks may not have been reconciled. And that data is then used for what is, almost entirely a retrospective exercise, and used for some pretty important decision making within businesses. And that was not good enough, and it is especially now not good enough in an age and in an environment where we have the capability, to do this in a way that means we can be working. Let's use the term real time. It might not be exactly there, but if real time is a threshold of what's happened previously to what's happening going forward, then let's use that, because I think we can pretty much get there now with everything Brian's just explained. So that's where we're at. To just reference some of these things on screen, what does it mean for our clients? It's that cash flow insight of where are they right now in the completeness of information being available to them, knowing that they've got a cash balance and there's no surprises, because they can be confident in the processing and entry or posting of everything that is relevant to that cash balance. They can have visibility going forwards, which is what we're going to touch on when we look at the Futrli demo a bit later on. They can look at some strategic level decision making. So the example here we've got is capital expenditure. That's strategic. It's understanding what your cash reserves are. Are you in fact going to look to finance that capital expenditure? What does it look like in terms of your ability to harness that capital asset for the future generation of revenue? What does it look like from a tax point of view? What does your tax position look like off the back of that decision to spend on capital? Then we've got things like funding and financing. Now, this is something that has gained a lot of pace because of the advantage of having fast data, real-time data, accurate and timely, and what that means for an increased ability and availability of funding and finance. And I think what I'd say here is that feels like there's been a perception for a long time that funding or financing is reserved for those businesses in trouble. And it is absolutely not the case. Funding and financing, for starters, doesn't always take the term debt. It could be grants, it could be equity funding, and they can be used for the furtherance of the business. You might be in a strong position, and that therefore might be the best time to think about growth plans. And those growth plans might require funding. And the availability of timely, accurate data, we'll keep talking about that because it's important. Massively improves your position as a business, and to our audience now, it improves your ability to advise your clients in that scenario. Any thoughts on that one, Brian? Further thoughts before we...
Yeah, no, absolutely. As you said, it's not always because the business is in trouble, and it's not necessarily a bank loan that they're looking for, but being able to provide or being able to demonstrate their finances literally up to a point, up to what could be what is live, might be an hour ago, can be extremely valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on. We've covered some of this, and certainly Brian, you covered this very succinctly in your summation of what fast data means, and we talked about clients, but also what does it mean for accountants? Because there's probably, it feels like there's a shift now and an acceptance and a willingness and an appetite now for the role of an accountant to start evolving along with the environment in which we find ourselves. There's the way that that's sort of being termed now is that we've got a bit of a compliance to advisory transition. I don't know that within those terms I'm completely aligned with it. I think in terms of an industry, we understand what that means. For me, I'd probably go down the route of that it's the client relationship that is evolving, in whatever form. The idea that we can be more closely aligned with our clients, and certainly the idea of fast data allows us to do that. We can be almost more like an extension of that client's team rather than a professional services provider that they reach out to when something's gone wrong or they need something. Somebody that's there that they trust, that they can pick up the phone to, but also has access to their data so that they can identify opportunity. They can look forwards, and as accountants, we'll all know that the advantage that can be taken is much better and much more available to us if we're able to look forwards rather than having to react to things that have already happened. That spans business advice, it spans tax advice, and again, this is what fast data provides us. It brings us into the position of being able to take that trusted, let's use the term trusted advisor positioning with our clients. Brian, thoughts on that piece around that trusted advisor term?
Yeah, absolutely. And from ourselves and AutoEntry, and Dan, of course, you guys in Futrli, it's not just, we spent a long time educating customers of ours and prospective customers of ours that we're not looking to cause anyone to lose their job. Okay, we handle the data entry, the manual piece of paper into your accounts. Dan, the guys in Futrli, handle all the forecasting. So you don't have to sit down and work through horrible spreadsheets and trying to calculate out and project it all forward. And your accounts package handles an awful lot of the work in the middle. And we're not saying that, you can start using these products and you can start using these apps, and you can let John in the corner over there go, or Dan, we don't need you anymore because we're now using this app or we're now using that app. But as we spoke to one of our biggest customers actually up in Belfast, I'm obviously here in Ireland, when he said, what do I do with my team that we're currently doing data entry? So, well, we'll just train them on AutoEntry. And all of a sudden now, where you were maxed out because you had 3 of your bookkeepers or 3 of your team doing the data entry, you can handle an extra 30% more clients because they couldn't bring in any new clients unless they started hiring more staff. And then there's a cutoff point. Well, I need to bring in 30 more clients to cover the extra staff, but I can't do that at the minute because it'll take some time. So implementing apps that gets or automates some of this flow of data from the piece of paper on the forecourt to forecasting what you're going to be doing in the next year or two, automating as much of that as possible means that you're spending less time on just diving through the data. We can present the data to you in a much quicker, easier, and more efficient way that you now have the ability that either as Dan said, you can spend more time with your clients. You're not chasing them for paperwork. You're not trying to explain everything to them. You're not trying to dive through Excel spreadsheets all day long. But also you now have more time to take on more clients where you might have been maxed out previously. You've got this excess capacity that using an app effectively buys you.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned a point there, Brian, around your team and what it means for your team if you're adopting these automated streamlining of processes that frees up time. And I think this is something that's come up a lot in conversations we've had with our accounting partners over the last couple of years. And there's 2 parts to it, because there's been a lot of challenges presented to the accounting industry in both attracting and retaining talent. I think it would be fair to say that's felt pretty widespread across the industry. And I really see what the opportunity we have now as something that we should take advantage of in ensuring that we can create an opportunity that is attractive to the best people, in the market. And I would like to think that with the opportunity to be more closely aligned with your clients' businesses, that's got to be more interesting than the type of processes and exercises that we're saying can be automated. I can't imagine anybody gets into accounting thinking, do you know what I want to do? I want to post loads of bank transactions and then reconcile them. Don't get me wrong, there's an element of
I'll stop you there, because I hate to say it. I did a talk in funny enough, it was in Belfast again a couple of years ago. And one of the things I said on stage was no one grew up wanting to do data entry, except for a couple down the back stuck their hands up.
Yeah, there might be a few, and yeah, as I say, don't get me wrong, there is definite enjoyment in reconciling that bank, but you know, that can still be there, that can still be part of the new process. But all we're saying is there's a new way in which, well, there's new roles which are developing that are available to more, let's say, tiers of an accounting practice. You know, historically, it feels like accounting practices have been tiered in seniority. I think with all of this, with fast data, with closer relationships with clients, there's opportunity to ensure that there is direct client engagement throughout the team, and that's got to be a good thing. With all the technology that's available, bringing back some of that, you know, bringing back the power of the people. The human piece again, the human element of this is I guess it's a phrase, a term, a word that's been used a lot. Certainly Accountex a few weeks ago, it was a big underlying theme of Accountex, but it was a big theme because it's a big thing. You know, technology will continue to evolve, but the role of a human in what we do, it can never be underestimated. Okay, so let's talk about the full power of fast data. So we're probably getting into the realms here. To sort of summarize a bit of the journey of the conversation, albeit Brian and myself maybe have gone a bit off piste at times, but what we're talking about is, you know, there's loads of data that's available to businesses. Let's make sure that there's an effective way of collecting it. Let's process it in the most optimum fashion that we can. Let's introduce those efficiencies, those automations. Let's ensure that that data is relevant, that it's accurate, and that it's timely. Brian talked about one of the previous slides about accelerating that process of collecting it through to posting it, and it then being available to those end clients or to accountants as advisors of those end clients, being available in a form that allows action or decisions. But because ultimately, if it doesn't afford for that, then all it is doing is ensuring compliance of financial management and record keeping. The data needs to get to a position whereby it can serve as a catalyst for making decisions or taking action for that business for the better towards its success plans. So, you know, some examples of this, and again, something that we'll look at when we go into the demo, but we've got testing performance against budget, forecast, or plan. You know, where are we at? Where did we think we were going? How are we tracking against that? Other decisions that we can make based upon the insights that are now available to us on a more timely basis, that means we can react in a financial year to potentially change the course of the direction for the better. And just to bring a bit of a balance to that, if we look at, you know, even when I was back in practicing recently as 2019, and you were having a meeting with a client, you know, might have been triggered by some year-end accounts. It was 3-4 months, and I'm saying that optimistically, 3-4 months after year-end, and you're looking to support that client in making decisions when you're already partway through that next financial year and you're discussing things based upon the financials of the previous year. The introduction and availability of fast data now means we are much better prepared, much better equipped to be able to support our clients in making those decisions that can make a difference now or tomorrow. And I don't think that's too bold to suggest. I think that's fair. Do you agree, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. And I dare say, not just getting the data in essentially live or getting that fast data in, populating how you're doing today or how you're doing yesterday, but I'm pretty sure you guys are pretty happy because the faster the data comes in and the more accurately it comes in, the better you can predict where you're going to be in those 3 months that you still haven't figured out yet.
Oh, that's absolutely it. Yeah, the foundation from which you can forecast in an optimum fashion is through accurate, timely, reliable information. All of those factors lead to better quality of forecasted information. And there are some elements of forecasting that you can forecast to 100% accuracy, things that are going to happen. But in the main, forecasting is a speculative, certainly no more timing about a speculative exercise. We want to reduce the amount of speculation involved in that, and the fast data allows us to achieve that. And that is painting us a much fuller and truer picture going forwards than we've ever had access to before. So I'll reference a couple of these other points in here before we move on to our last couple of bits before we go into demos. Excuse me 1 second. I've just got to plug my laptop in mid demo. Not the best.
Just in case anyone thought this wasn't a live demo.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We've got absolutely no danger now of running out of battery, so we can see this through to the end. So just then a couple of bits on here for reference. Again, we'll touch on these in live demo, so we'll bring them to life. But things like variance analysis, project growth, and scenario planning. So with the ability to project out more accurately, we can also start to look at the what if scenarios. What if we make this decision? What does that look like for us in 3, 6, 9, 12 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? And we can start to see the different versions of the plan as it might look dependent upon the decisions we make as a business. So it's all of this stuff that probably was available to a really small sort of like top end tier of clients in accounting practice, was available to them, was a huge exercise to carry out, cost loads and loads of money, and probably was available, months after the time it was needed. Now what we've got the ability to do is provide this type of really valuable advice and exercise output to a greater proportion of our client portfolios, which is hugely powerful. Okay, so where are we going? Because in truth, technology is moving. It's different today as it was yesterday. It's evolving all the time, and it's difficult to keep up. I think we've got to acknowledge that. There's so much in terms of technological solutions in the accounting industry that sometimes you feel like you've got to just go with it, and by the time you've adopted and implemented something, there's something else which sort of takes your eye. So it feels like there's got to be a degree of focus brought in on this. You've got to focus on what is your strategy as a practice, what is your ethos, how do you want to work, and then to use the technology that's available to support you in that goal, that growth, and that journey that you're going on. In terms of where we're going, there's the things that are now being introduced to the industry. Let's reference chat GPT. It's there. There's some efforts maybe to regulate it further, but in truth, it's there. It's being used. I've used it. It's an example of where things are going, what might be utilized further by the industry. And I think the point I'll make on all of this for me is that it's just another technology that is available for us as an industry to take advantage of, providing that we continue to be in control and harness its power in line with our objectives, rather than being led by it. Almost like if you're walking your dog, we're making sure we're holding the lead of the dog and not being dragged along by it. And that's my view on it, sort of a universal level, maybe idealistic, but that's how I see it. But Brian, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's coming. I don't like it. I haven't even actually used it or gone anywhere near anything towards AI. despite the fact we actually have AI within our product. But, you know, if I don't make a mistake somewhere along the way, I think that's, you know, sometimes we're just human. But it is going to be a big thing in the next few years. Oh, did you freeze there, Dan, all of a sudden? No. Have we lost Dan? Or Dan? Are you back, Dan? You back, Dan?
I am. I can hear you. Have I frozen?
You have frozen. Look, see, this is what happens when you give away artificial intelligence. It will find you and shut you down. Frozen. It will find you and shut you down.
I can hear. Give me 30 seconds. Apologies.
I'm going to presume Dan is going to rejoin in a second. Bear with us 1 second, folks. All right, he's on the way back to us. So, as he was saying, with the likes of AI and technology coming, there is this element of, you know, there's, as it says on the slide, even that there's no place to hide when auditing time comes along, because it'll always be on. But as you guys all know, of course, in practice, there's generally no place to hide once it comes to auditing. So using AI, and as I mentioned, AutoEntry actually uses AI within within our product itself. And while we use it very specifically, so we have it trained to look at invoices and bank statements that customers upload, and it uses that information to extract what's required from that particular piece of paper or from that particular document. And it's extremely powerful. We have it built, as I said, very specifically for what AutoEntry needs to do. However, when you look at it going forward, you can then start to apply it to maybe on a higher level of the modeling and the analytics that you need in the future. And it could be the bank loan, or it could be looking for a grant or applying for financing later on, that it can accelerate or can help with those types of applications. So if I'll actually start, my screen wasn't sharing there, excuse me. Let me share my screen so you guys at least can see what I'm discussing. Where is my Zoom? Share screen, and I want to share that. Perfect. So hopefully you should see my screen there now. Anyway, so with the last slide then we have is next slide. So this is kind of just a summary of this always on data flow that we've been talking about, whether we call it fast data, whether we call it live data, and we'll probably hear more about these kind of terms going forward later on, whereby you have on the far left hand side AutoEntry, as we'll see in a minute, that gets your data, gets your client data into your accounts package. We have the open banking, as we mentioned, such a simple tool. As I said, AutoEntry has that data extraction for bank and credit card statements, which made a huge difference before open banking came along, but open banking has taken over from that. So if you have it available, absolutely go straight into that. And you could even have other data automation inputs, the likes of, and no affiliation or anything else. You've probably seen the ads for the likes of a company called Clio, which is for a corporate credit card or corporate debit card that'll feed straight into an accounts package as well. You could have any number of those kind of payment systems, or the likes of Stripe, maybe if you're taking payments, or one of your clients uses Stripe, or they use the little credit card machine SumUp. So you can have those data sources flowing in fully automatically into your accounts package. And then with the accounts doing their thing, whether it's AutoEntry or not AutoEntry, whether it's Sage or, for example, QuickBooks or Xero, all of the forecasting can then be done on the Futrli side of it. So we'll help you get that data in. We help you with the worst kind of that data. It's all pieces of paper. It'll get into your accounts package. Futrli then takes over. And as we can see on the right-hand side of the screen, I think Dan might have just rejoined us, but as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, those decisions and applications can be dealt with automatically through the Futrli system.
Thanks, Brian. My apologies. So my thinking that I'd caught the battery going just in time wasn't quite enough. I'm back now. Brian, thank you for rescuing me in my brief absence. Did you want me to pick back up on this slide? I've caught most of what we've been through.
Yeah, I think even from the Futrli on the right-hand side of the slide there. Yeah,
perfect. So what we're talking about here, and I presume, Brian, you're on your screen share here.
Yes.
So what we're talking about really is Futrli filling the position of both surfacing the data that we've collected, we've managed, we've processed, and we've allocated in our accounting software, surfacing that in a manner and a form that can aid strategic decision making through the effort of forecasting. There's a piece that probably sits in between that, and that is a specific function within Futrli that allows us to engage and manipulate the output of our forecast based upon the detail that exists within our ledgers in our accounting software. That's unique to Futrli and is huge in the direct short-term forecasting piece. So ensuring that we've got that accurate forecasted cash flow specific to any outstanding items on our ledger. It's just all building the position of a more accurate forecast picture that we're building out. And that then comes to the position where we talk through this. So this is a bit of repetition on what we've had in our previous slides about what does all of this mean for clients and what does it mean for accountants in practice. Now, for our clients, we've talked about this. It means that there's much greater access to exercises, to resources through the use and the availability of that real-time, that always-on fast data that they've achieved through good practice that they've instilled in the earlier part of the process. For accountants, and this is something that certainly myself and my team at Futrli have worked a lot with our accounting partners on, and it's how can we as accountants in practice make sure we make the most of the availability of this fast data, utilizing these technological solutions that are available to us in order to, I think the way I pitch it is to say, in order to maximize the value that we're providing our clients, because ultimately that is the crux of ensuring that as a business, you've got commercial viability and that you're going to be profitable. Because if you're providing you're valuable to your clients, then you have an ability to charge fees for that value. Those fees are most likely where they sit in a space for what is deemed to be more advisory focused work. So this is something we thought a lot about Futrli a lot. What does advisory mean? And in truth, I think it's a bit fluffy. It's talked about a lot. I don't know it can be fully defined for everyone, but I've got, I guess my feeling on it is that accountants should start to offer more advice and support that is focused on what's happening, what's coming down the line, a forward-looking support, as opposed to a retro basis support that for me, you might not use the terms compliance and advisory, but for me, everything going back is compliance in nature. Everything going forwards is more advisory focused. What do you think, Brian? Sort of agreed with that?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And that means that you can really provide a tangible benefit. And, you know, if that tangible benefit can be quantifiable, then the fees that you're able to charge, and this will be fairly because there's a value in it to the client, are increased. And your ability to get greater return on investment per client is greater. So that's where we're heading. I think all of this will go back to it. You know, it all starts from those things on the left. These are the things, the foundations through which we can build out the rest. So it's getting those things in place in order to allow yourself to be in that forward-looking position.
Yeah. All right. Well, shall we have a quick look at what we do?
Let's go for it, Brian.
Let's go for it. All right. I need to stop sharing up here and bear with me for 1 second to start sharing down here. And I am looking for this one. Oops, share. So I think you should see my AutoEntry screen there.
Correct.
Correct. Excellent. So this is AutoEntry, nice and simple. I'll do a quick run through. And as we mentioned, we are the really boring explanation of what AutoEntry does is we are a data extraction software company with AI and machine learning built in to get your pieces of paper into your accounting package as efficiently as possible, which sounds terrible. It's not that exciting at all, but our accountants and bookkeepers and company owners absolutely love us. We are a super little tool. We do politely call ourselves a very complicated, simple product. We only actually do one thing. When you give us a piece of paper, we extract what's on it and we give it back to you. However, as we'll see, and I'll touch on some of them, some of the features that are kind of a little bit more hidden, we aim to automate that process as much as possible to speed up getting that data that's on the piece of paper into your accounts package. What we're looking at here, this is effectively what we'd call our practice homepage. What we term a company would be one of your clients. So these would be individual businesses. Set up each company. As you can see, we integrate with all the main accounting packages. So granted, we were acquired by Sage a couple of years ago. We're not Sage exclusive. We're still an agnostic tool that you can use us. And we're fully conscious that while you might use Sage for some of your clients, you might use Xero from some others, you might use QuickBooks for some others. So it's a very simple integration method. When you create your company, connect it to the accounts package. We can click into each company and we handle 6 main document types for each company. Purchase folder is probably the most common for invoices, bills, receipts, and credit notes. Supplier statements, we have an automatic supplier statement reconciliation tool that we can reconcile a statement with those invoices you've uploaded that month. Sales invoices, I'm sure some of you out there have a couple of clients who use Word document or who use Excel or some other simple piece of software maybe that they just create their own invoices on and they send those out to clients. Bank statements, of course, as I mentioned, for bank and credit card statements, full extraction, full verification of the figures before returning it back to you. And we even have an expense report module. So not for you guys in practice, but for your clients. A nice, simple, easy to use expense report where they snap an image of the receipt. They can add them all into an expense report at the end of the month, submit that expense report and flow it through your accounts package, being able to repay them, which more importantly, not only does it give you a nice breakdown of the expense report itself, but it includes the images of all of those individual receipts. So you've got your full digital audit trail throughout the whole process as well. Getting documents into AutoEntry couldn't be easier. I've mentioned the phone app a few times. Of course, the easiest way, snap an image, upload it through the phone app. If you've already scanned them on a scanner, up top right here, we've the upload document pane where you select the folder you want to upload them to. And very simply, you've saved a PDF locally on your PC, simply browse or drag and drop those files straight there. We do, of course, allow email, and we even have fetching as well. So we can go to Vodafone or go to Zoom and actually fetch the monthly invoice for your client on their behalf. drop it into the purchasers inbox if you wish for analysis and publishing on. Once we receive them, what happens in the background? To be honest, an awful lot of voodoo. This is where the guys who are sitting down at the end of the office here, they come into their own, we receive it, we extract all the data from it, we make sense of all that data on it, we verify that what we've extracted is correct, and then we return it back to you into your inbox here. And their normal turnaround times, it's under 2 hours. So for every invoice we receive, it'll be under 2 hours when we return it back into this inbox for you. So just clearing off this warning at the top, this is our inbox. So we can now see what has been received by AutoEntry. It has extracted the date, the supplier name, and over the right-hand side, currency, net, VAT, and total. Of course, we accept any and all international currencies. We'll automatically convert it back to sterling for you, obviously for local currency. And we have 3 drop-down menus. So when we connect to your accounts package, we pull through your list of suppliers, we pull through your list of nominal accounts and your list of VAT codes. Of course, I'm based in Ireland here, so these are just the Irish standard VAT codes. Once all 3 have been filled in, and even if I do this one down the bottom, I'll just change it to a different VAT code as an example, we'll offer to remember it. So we will always remember that particular setting for all of your future uploads or future invoices from this particular supplier. Then it's as simple as clicking a button to publish it through. The little icon appears to say, in this case, it has been received by Sage Business Cloud Accounting. We've the little lightning bolt here to say it has actually been auto-published. So for the likes of utility bills or subscriptions, okay, maybe the figure at the end of the month might change each month, but it's always going to go to the same nominal account. It's always going to go to the same VAT code. We can fetch it, extract it, analyze it for you, and publish it through to your accounts package. And that's the example whereby you click in and you click refresh, all of a sudden there's a new invoice for you, and your client hasn't done anything, you haven't done anything, it's fully automated. A couple of the warnings here, we'll even recognize duplicates for you. You have maybe manually entered it into Sage last week, or you've uploaded one via the phone app and you've also scanned one in by mistake and uploaded it as well. We will recognize duplicates, and we'll even give you options on what you want to do next once we receive that duplicate. More importantly, even we can click in to view them. And this Vodafone bill, of course, perfect example of using the phone app to snap an image off that bill. Your client opens up an envelope on the Monday morning. It's a Vodafone bill, snap an image, upload it. You have it in AutoEntry within 2 hours. And even if you've turned on auto publish, it's in your accounts package within that 2 hours as well. As you can see, a bit more granular detail. So you can edit and update or alter any of these fields, settings. If there's a due date, for example, we have a mark as paid feature that you can mark it as paid at some date in the future. If I scroll down, we also do automatic as standard VAT extractions as well. So if there is split VAT rates or tax summaries on the actual invoice, we'll recognize your net VAT and total for the 0% line, net VAT and total for the 20% line, obviously in the UK, meaning you can categorize and analyze those lines properly as well. And that's all done as standard. And again, as you fill them in, we'll remember those settings for you going forward. So you can very easily publish through your invoices on that invoice view. You can use the checkboxes down the left and publish them in bulk from this page. Once published, we have up the top here your archive folder where we'll store those invoices for you going forward. We have the activity where you can view basically an audit trail. Your rejected folder is for anything that we can't process or we can't extract from. Specifically, most common, duplicate invoice. Maybe you uploaded a document in error, maybe a back of a page was uploaded in error, it's not an invoice, or even if it's not clear. And also you'd be surprised how many photos of cats we get.
Brian, I can hear you speeding up. I'm just wondering, we're quite close on time.
We are. I was only going to cover the purchases folder anyway.
Perfect.
Nice quick overview, but as Dan will say, and certainly with any of the guys here, if you do want to have a full proper look, oh, there's a poll has just popped up that you can enter in there. We'll be back in touch and one of our team will organize that demo for you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brian. I'm now going to give the best 2.5-minute demo of Futrli that you will have ever seen. That's a promise. And so that if people just hold on, there may well be some Q&As that fall in after. I can see there's already one, Brian, in the Q&As. Perhaps whilst I'm sharing, you may want to just check that it's AutoEntry specific.
Let's have a look. I stopped sharing there, but I've lost my Zoom portal. Where is it gone?
Okay, so I'll continue. Everyone should be able to see my screen now. So Futrli, what we're talking about is strategic advisory platform through which you can carry out your forecasting in 3-way across cash flow, performance-based profit and loss, balance sheet, and cash flow. I'll split it out into 3 core sections. So we've got our performance, which is where our dashboards live, and I'll run through those dashboards in a second. It's a way that you can surface insights into the data that's both been as actually happened, and the auto predictions based upon the Futrli algorithm. You've then got your forecasting and budgeting section, which is essentially the engine through which you manage all of the data that you can then surface in either your dashboards or your reporting. Your final area is your reporting, whereby you can design those reports that can be generated using templates in our next release that's coming out imminently, but equally through reports that you can design on your own, and you can repeat and schedule those reports to be generated automatically. Just to cover some of these performance dashboards that exist already, this is based upon something called a daily tracker. The daily tracker is built out based upon the Futrli algorithm of auto predictions. And that auto prediction is based upon the assessment of the real data that's flowed through from the accounting software. That takes into account not just transactions, but also invoices, bills. It takes into account any manual journals and the associated cash impact of those transactions. It takes into account seasonality, and then it maps out for you what it looks like you're going to be doing for the following 12 months, up to, in fact, 36 months. We then got across here profit and loss, again lifting some of the key information based upon that detail, and you can change the period of time that you're looking at. It will take into account any predicted items that exist. I'll cover, because it's unique, the customers and suppliers tab within the performance dashboard, and that is because there are some absolutely invaluable insights that live in here. You can see details around dependency on particular customers, suppliers. If you click into any of these, you can see about their habits in terms of paying, whether they're a risk, traffic light system on dependency and risk as well included there. I'll go into forecasting. So in here, we can build out scenarios based upon existing data sets. We can build out budgets. And we also have access to what is our primary forecast, the daily tracker. This is where Futrli applies its auto predictions. So what Futrli is going to do is, in the first instance, the unique capability of viewing all of the transactions that exist in the source data ledgers, so across bills and invoices. And it gives you the ability to manipulate the timing of cash flow associated with each of those items. So if you're actually saying, look, you know what, we now think we will receive this 4-season bill, and we will receive it as expected based upon the due date, you can bring that in. That will update then the cash flow. You can equally select the little calendar option. You can schedule series of payments to be paid against it or received, or you can just push out the date that you're expecting it to be paid or received. This then flows across each of the different categories within the accounts. And what I'll just show you here for insight into the auto prediction, which is detailed by this amount here, you can click into any of the auto predictions generated and see the basis upon which they've been predicted. That's across profit and loss, cash flow, and tells you whether or not any journals have been identified within that. So really good ability to validate and assess the merit of the predictions that exist. Of course, you can always override these. So if this wasn't relevant, you can toggle it off and you can add in your own manual prediction. Manual prediction can take 4 different forms. It can take the form of freestyle, just tapping it in for the relevant periods across any number of financial years. It can take the form of a repeating, so something like rent, you might just want to repeat in month by month and apply some percentage increases. You can do it based upon units. So if you're in manufacturing distribution, you might want to include this based upon a selling price, and you can phase in new selling price, new unit numbers. You can always dictate as well the cash flow treatment associated with that prediction. And then lastly, and most powerfully, the formula method, which means you can basically use any basis of prediction assumption that you like. It mimics Excel almost entirely. My only caveat to this would be to say that I would propose or recommend that you always use the most simplified method of prediction that achieves the most accurate level of output. So don't use a formula method for the sake of using a formula method if you can use a repeating or a unit based. So that's the prediction builder. Then you've got the ability to maintain multiple scenarios of forecasts, and then you get into the position whereby you might want to start reporting on some of this. I'm going to go straight into a template. A lot of these templates will already exist. They'll be available to users just to pull upon, and it will connect to the org's data that they've connected. The data sources that we can connect to are Sage Business Cloud, Xero, and QuickBooks Online. The health tech template is an example. So if I just pull this up, this is an easy way to just surface some key metrics for businesses using templates based upon your org data. We've built in the ability to add exec summaries so the accountant can influence the area of discussion. You've got different graphics. You can look backwards, you can look forwards. You can transition your client into a more advisory focused engagement with you through the use of these templates. And there's a whole host of them here that can be used just based on template form, as well as an appendices or a summary of the metrics that are included. So that's my whistle-stop tour, easy for you to say. And as Brian said with AutoEntry, equally, reach out. Appreciate we maybe down to the fact that I had to drop out, but we ran out of time a bit on the demos. Do reach out to us. There should have been a poll. I think I did see it flash up if you want a further demo. That's the same for AutoEntry and Futrli. And I guess some closing words, Brian.
Go do it.
Absolutely. That's it, isn't it? There's some simple first steps that can be taken on it. We talked about the bank, and AutoEntry is, and I can say this without any bias because I used to use AutoEntry in practice. It's a great way to start this journey of it making your processes more efficient, capturing that data efficiently, processing it efficiently, and removing some of those barriers to fast data.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we said, you'd be surprised how easy it is. That the one thing we've always seen is, certainly when practices are looking at adopting apps or adopting new apps, that there can be so many on the market that it can be a little bit daunting or a little bit difficult knowing where to go first. Try us. I'll put the little plug in there. We're not so bad. We're clearly nice to deal with. We're nice guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the people, right? About the people underpinning the quality of the solution.
Absolutely.
I like to think we bring both to the table, Brian. And I think probably on that note, we've kept people a little longer. Thank you very much for staying. The numbers did stay on, which I appreciate. Apologies again for my my cutting out. There is one more Q&A. I wonder if okay, so there's one Q&A to arrange a demo. That's absolutely fine, carry on. We can get that sorted. And as I say, thank you all for joining. I hope it's been a valuable session, and would be really good to hear and see from some of you that attended further down the line.
And Dan, thanks a lot for having us.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Brian.